So this is our greenhouse. It was so hot in here a couple weeks ago, some of my seed trays melted. So I don't like to spend too much time in here. We're not going to spend too much time. I just want to touch base on what we're using this for. So this space is fantastic in the spring and the fall because it helps us extend the season. But we can use that heat to our advantage because with a lot of leafy greens and other, a lot of leafy greens and root vegetables will experience what's called bolting. So when it gets too hot, they send up that flower stalk and they go straight to seed instead of making the nice leafy greens that we want to eat. So we're using that to our advantage in here. We've got kale that was just recently seeded and lettuce and radishes. And when those come up, they're going to very quickly be like, holy crap, it's hot in here. And they're going to pump out seeds really quickly. We also have biennial crops in here, which means that they produce the vegetable that we eat in year one, but if you don't harvest them, year two, they grow back with their seed producing structure. So we've got radishes and carrots and turnips and other things that this year they'll make a carrot, they'll make a radish, they'll make a turnip, but they'll be sheltered enough in this greenhouse that they'll live over the winter, and then they'll come back in the spring with that flower stalk that we can save the seeds from. So we're kind of using this very difficult space to our advantage. We've got this straw on top of everything because it helps keep things nice and moist. But if you look really close, like I've got the little cabbage seedlings are starting to come up, and each popsicle stick here marks off a section of the box. It's got the variety name, it's got the type of vegetable. So we like to keep everything labeled, keep everything organized, because all the broccoli seeds look exactly the same, so we need to know what's what so that we don't get them all mixed up, because that kind of defeats the purpose. So we're going to get out of here because it's really, really hot. So this is a perfect example right here. This is, this was pak choi, and they were these lovely little seed, like little plants that you would just cut off and put in your stir fry, what have you, but they don't like the heat, and it's been very hot. So they have bolted, and as you can see here, they've put up these stalks with these cute little yellow flowers, and now they have all these seed pods. So these seed pods you can eat them, or you can let them mature, and they've got seeds. Just these cute, tiny little seeds. Now, yep. Can you see?
I've never heard of that plant before.
It's used a lot in Asian dishes. You'll see it in it's in a lot of like stir fries and that sort of thing.
White then green?
Yeah, it's like, it looks kind of cabbagey.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So these seeds aren't mature, but what we're gonna do is you basically just leave these alone on the plant, and when they turn dry and brittle, that's when you know that they're ready. So it's interesting because bok choy is actually supposed to be a biennial plant. It's not supposed to make its seeds until second year, but because of the heat we've had, I think that's why it's done this. So I'm hoping that that works to our advantage in the greenhouse, and we can get biennial crops to flower in year one so that we can save the seeds quickly. So that's kind of an example of one of those, where is the seed on this plant, vegetables. Another good one is the lettuce. Now, or actually, I'll show you some radishes over this way. So another example of something that does not like the heat are radishes. So this is what happens to a radish if you leave it alone. So this looks nothing like a radish. Like, this is crazy. These seed pods, yes, again, you can eat them, or you can leave them alone and let them go to seed. Now, when you're looking at different, when you're researching how to save different seeds, it'll tell you whether they are self-pollinating or whether they need to be pollinated. So radishes are they're really good at self-pollinating, and they are one of those ones that you don't need to worry too much about them crossing with other varieties, but some vegetables are more likely to do that than others. So that's when you want to get a hold of those info sheets for different things that you're saving, because some things really love to cross, and you have to take extra steps to prevent that. So we'll get into that in a minute. But basically, yeah, we would just leave these go and let them dry, and they look like beans. And when they dry, they'll have these beautiful seeds inside, and we can just crack them open and take out the seeds. So the seed saving section of your garden is going to be crazy looking because it's not nice, neat little rows like your radishes. It's monsters like this, but this is exactly what you want. So that's another really good example of the weird seeds are hiding in plain sight sort of vegetables. So,
How big is just one radish plant? That's many, I'm assuming.
this is one. So I had one last year. One got this big. Like, they get huge and they grow quickly. It's insane how fast they grow. So, and then here we've got some peas. So peas and beans are one of those nice obvious ones. The thing that you want to do when you're saving your peas and beans is leave them on the plant. Leave them alone. Don't pick them. Wait until they're dry, and when you can shake them and it sounds like a maraca, that's when they're ready. But you just leave them alone. They take care of themselves. They don't really cross-pollinate very easily. If I'm saving some sort of really special like bean or something, like I have some Vermont cranberry beans that I only had like 3 seeds left, so I'm being very particular about saving those. I will use measures to prevent any cross-pollination, and I'll hand pollinate them just to be sure, but usually you don't have to do that. Normally they will just take care of that on their own. A lot of them, sometimes they don't even, like beans and peas are really good for not even needing a pollinator. They'll just, like, you can grow beans inside with no bees and no wind and they will do their thing. That said, the bees love the pea and bean flowers, so definitely plant them, definitely encourage the bees to be there. But they're one of those nice vegetables that will produce seed on their own with or without the bees. So now we're going to sneak over to this side and take a look at the garlic. Okay, so this is all garlic, and as you can see, it's turning brown and it's almost ready to harvest. And if you've ever grown garlic before, you know that you go through in the summer and snip off the scapes. So the scape is that big curly green thing that grows up in the middle, and it looks like this. And you take it off because if the part of the plant that we're interested in is the bulb that's under the ground, that's an energy source for the plant. So again, the plant doesn't care what we want, it just wants to pass on its genes, but we want to eat its energy store, and we want a big energy store. So what we do is we come and we snip off that scape so that it puts more energy into growing a big bulb. But I always leave a few scapes on the plant because that's going to make a flower. So this is a garlic flower. It's not opened yet, but it will open and be this big beautiful bloom, and the bees will come and do their thing, and the seeds look like teeny tiny garlic cloves. So in another 2 or 3 weeks, this will be like a big ball with tiny garlic cloves on it. And those cloves are garlic seed, like true seed. When we're normally growing garlic, we're growing it from a clove of the main bulb, so we're technically cloning it. But when we're growing it from these true seeds, we can actually play with the genetics a little bit and actually help adapt it to its environment a little bit. So if I save seeds from this plant, this is going to be a little bit hardier for this area than if I were to just take the cloves from this plant and plant them, because the cloves from this plant are genetically identical to this plant. But the seeds from this plant have the genes of whatever other plant pollinated it, if that makes sense. So the seeds are this plant's children, and the cloves are, we're just cloning this plant. So you get more genetic diversity if you're growing from seed. A nice thing I like about garlic seed too is that's another one of those things that runs out really quickly during a pandemic. And garlic cloves don't keep very well you can't just save garlic cloves all winter to plant next year. So what I do every year is I save some garlic seed, and we're gonna have to back up a little because this box right here is all garlic from seed. So these tiny little strings are little baby garlics. So the downside to saving garlic seed is it takes about 4 years for it to grow to maturity. But the upside is it doesn't take very much room. So I can leave this here and forget about it for a few years. And the year after next, I'll have seed, like full cloves, to plant for the following year's harvest. So they start out as these tiny, tiny things. And then in year 2, they look something like these skinny little guys. And then by year 3, they look like this. And then by year 4, they'll be a full head of garlic, and then I can take those cloves and plant them for the following year. So I could do a whole workshop on just garlic seed saving because I find it fascinating. The nice thing about this technique is you can have them in the pots and they're labeled. You don't forget that you put them there and then go over them with the lawnmower in the spring. I did that once. It was devastating. And by putting them in the pot and then burying them in the box, they get all the benefits of being underground, but they're contained and kept nice and tidy with the pot. So that's kind of a really cool, not a lot of people save garlic seed. There is I believe it's like the Seed Garlic Association of Canada. There's like a club for garlic seed savers, and the number of varieties is astounding. Like the guy that donated all this seed garlic to us grows 30 varieties of garlic at his home for fun. And I was telling Gardner about that. They said, I didn't know there was more than one variety of garlic. It's like, surprise! So I think we've got 6 varieties here, but some of these, like, it's his like passion project. So he's collected garlic from Spain. He's got French garlic. We've got like all different kinds that have been brought from all over the world and have adapted to this climate, and you get different size bulbs, you get different flavors. They all look kind of the same now that they're almost mature, but while they were in like the height of their growing season, you could tell by looking, the leaves were different colors, they were different shapes. You know, some was a little bluer green, some was a more yellow green, some were taller, some were shorter, some were fatter. So depending on what you want for your garlic, if you love purple striped garlic, if you like that really big giant bulb with big cloves, or you want a big bulb with tiny cloves, whatever it is that you like, you can choose the variety that best suits you. And once you get into seed saving, you just get into collecting varieties, because seed saving is a gateway drug. So, but you will, you know, first you're just saving seeds for the next year, and then the next thing you know, you got 30 varieties of beans and you're trying to decide what to grow every year because you can't choose because you want to grow them all. But that's okay. I just think it's fascinating because every variety has its own history, has its own story, and there's so much, there's just, for you to have those seeds in your hand, somebody had to take the steps every single year, again and again and again and again and again, for that seed to exist. So that's pretty cool. The last thing I'm going to kind of touch on is how I take measures to prevent cross-pollination when I'm saving seeds from things that are prone to cross-pollinating. So I'm gonna grab my little mesh bags. Elaine, do you want to hand me? I've got a Ziploc baggie of little, nope, it's on the picnic table. It's a Ziploc baggie full of little organza bags. So, as you can see, we've got this nice chunky little bee here going around from plant to plant, and he's not super picky about which flower he's going to when, and regardless of how many times I leave instructions for the bees, they still will go from this plant and then over to that box and then go over here. So they're moving pollen all around. So I use these little organza bags, I call them plant condoms, and we use them to stop the bees from pollinating specific plants. So if we look at these nice ones over here, so these are cherry tomatoes. These boxes are all cherry tomatoes, but specifically a couple plants are, these are like cherry grande, these are sweet million. I've got a few different varieties, but this one here is cherry grande, and I know I want to save seeds from it. So I've got this little flower here. It's not opened yet, so this is the key, is you have to get there before it's open. I put this little bag, oh, can you see?
Okay, can you do it one more time?
Yeah. I put this little bag over the flowers, so it's nice and mesh. It still gets all the airflow it needs. It'll still get sun, it'll still get rain. It does its thing, and I check it every day. And then once I see that it's opened, I'm gonna go to another plant of this same variety that I've done the same thing to, and I'm gonna take my electric toothbrush. I take my electric toothbrush, and you just touch it to the flowers, and you turn it on, and that buzzing makes the pollen just right out of there. And you've got a toothbrush full of pollen. And then you bring it to the next flower of the same variety, and you do that again, and you make sure that there's, you know, you mix the pollen up as much as you can between the flowers. So then you put your little mesh baggie right back on there, and you wait. And as soon as you see fruit, you can take the baggie off, because once once there's a little tomato started there, you know it's pollinated. So then I take a little piece of flagging tape. I only have green flagging tape. I recommend using a different color. And you tie it on that little stem so that when you're picking your tomatoes, you know, oh, those are my seed-saving tomatoes. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to pick them. So you flag that, and that's how I know, that's how my students know, don't pick those ones. We need to save those. We're going to squish them up later and get the seeds out. I got these on Amazon. It was a bag of 100 for 20 bucks. And you can use them again and again and again. Yeah, and just keep on using them. So you see we've got this lovely little bee over here, and he's just doing his thing. But he's gone from that beefsteak tomato over there to this cherry tomato with little regard for what I'm doing. And, oh, sorry, this one's closed. See, and so off he goes to another one. But you can see if you look at him, his little saddlebags are just covered in pollen because he's going flower to flower and doing his job. Yep. But so if you only had one type of tomato in your garden, you don't need to worry about doing this. But where we've got so many varieties so close together, the extra step is definitely worth it just to make sure you know what you have. Because, I mean, if I wanted to grow some like nice black cherry tomatoes and then I planted them and I got like yellow or red cherries, I would be very disappointed. And we share our seeds with a lot of people, so we want to avoid the disappointment.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you.
If I come by tomorrow with the starter, I just have to ask for you.
Yes, I will be here.
Okay, around 9:30, a little bit after.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm usually here for 8:30.
Perfect.
Perfect.